Okay, so welcome to 3.7. We are still solving inequalities, but we're going to be solving two-step inequalities, or at least two-step inequalities, but still using everything that we've learned in the past, using the distributive property, combining like terms, all of those good things. And we're also going to see situations that call for an inequality. So we'll set up that inequality, and then we will solve it. Keep in mind, basically the same rules or properties that apply to solving equations apply to solving inequalities. So if I add something to the left side, I must do it to the right. Anything we do to the left side, we must also do to the right. But be careful, because when we solve inequalities, the one difference, and it's a huge difference, is when we multiply or divide by a negative, we must flip that inequality sign. And we solve the y in 3.6. So let's just jump into solving some of these inequalities. And notice it says identify a possible solution. So remember, inequalities give us a solution set, not one exact answer. So there's an infinite number of solutions with inequalities. But the goal is to get w by itself. So to make this a 0, to start to isolate the variable, we can subtract 5 from both sides. So we have 3w is less than or equal to 14 minus 5 is 9. Final thing, divide by 3, because we know 3 divided by 3 is 1, and we want a 1 because we know 1 times w is still just w. Realizing dividing by 3 is the same thing as multiplying by 1/3, which is the reciprocal of 3, so any number multiplied by its reciprocal is always 1. So w is less than or equal to 3. So my solution set consists of any number that is 3 or less. So possible solutions. What if w equals 3? Is that okay? Yes, because it can be equal to. W could be negative 50, whatever you want it to be, but go ahead and pick a possible solution as long as it fits this stipulation. Must be less than or equal to 3. All right, this next one, hopefully we see, we have the distributive property. We will learn in the next section maybe how to get rid of that fraction, so we'll kind of want to add that to our bank of knowledge. Yet another way to solve an equation or an inequality. But for today, let's just go with the distributive property. So we have 2/3 times 1 and 2/3 times negative a is greater than or equal to 4. Okay. Isolate a, so we have a 2/3, so we want to subtract 2/3 from both sides. 2/3 minus 2/3 is 0. So negative 2/3 a is greater than or equal to, so I'm going to come off to the side here because I have 4 minus 2/3. So remember, before you can add or subtract fractions, you must have a common denominator. So 4 is a fraction, it's just 4 over 1, because we know 4 divided by 1 is still just 4. The common denominator is going to be 3. So if I multiply the denominator by 3, I also have to multiply the numerator by 3. But keep in mind, I'm not changing the value of 4 because essentially I'm multiplying it by 1. 3 divided by 3 is the same as 1. So I'm just rewriting 4 as 12, 3 times 4, over 3 times 1, which we know 12 divided by 3 is 4, minus 2/3. But what that allows me to do now is actually subtract the numerators. 12 minus 2 is 10. So I get negative 2/3 a is greater than or equal to 10/3. So now to get a by itself, or to get a 1a, any number multiplied by its reciprocal will give me a 1. So I can multiply this side by negative 3/2, which means I multiply this side by negative 3/2. So I'm actually going to go ahead and erase this so I give myself more room. So negative 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. Positive 6 over 2 times 3, which is 6. 6 over 6 is 1. So we end up with 1a, or just a, which is what we want. 10 times negative 3. 3 times 2. But here's the thing. Does my sign stay the same? No, I'm multiplying by a negative number, so we need to flip that sign. Finally, can I simplify this? Negative 30 divided by 6? Yes, that's negative 5. So my solution set is any number less than or equal to 5. So possible solutions, let's see, a could be negative 5 because it could be equal to. A could be negative 4. No, that's greater to negative 5. So remember, that's closer to 0, so it's a bigger number. It could be negative 6. A could be negative 5.1. But again, just pick your possible solution because there is an infinite number of solutions with inequalities. Hence, solution set. The next one. If you notice on the right side, we've got to do a little bit of work before we can start to solve or get r by itself. So we have 5r minus 7 times the quantity of this. So let's start with the distributive property. Realize you are distributing a negative 7. The negative is with the 7, it's in front of 7. So 3 is greater than 5r, negative 7 times r, negative 7 times 1. Okay, I have to continue to simplify or condense. So do I have any like terms? Yes, I have 5r and negative 7r. So I have 3 is greater than negative 2r minus 7. Now this is an easy problem. So I've got r and I've got a constant, just a number, so I can go ahead and start to get r by itself. Minus 7, so I want to add 7. I need to make that 0. So I got 10 is greater than negative 2r. How do I make this a 1? Multiply it by negative 1/2, which is the same as dividing by negative 2. So I get negative 5 is what? Dividing by a negative 2, or multiplying by a negative, however you want to say it. Got to flip that sign. So that will be the final answer. Now be careful, because if you move your variable, you have to pay attention to how the sign was facing. So this is my final answer, but I can rewrite it if you like the variable on the left. R is greater than negative 5 would be just another way to say that. So negative 5 is less than R, meaning it's smaller than R, so R is bigger, which is the same thing as saying R is greater than negative 5. So what would some possible solutions be? Greater than negative 5, so it could be negative 4. R could be 0, R could be 10, R could be 50, whatever you want there, as long as it follows greater than negative 5. But realize, in this case, R cannot be negative 5 because that would make equal to, not greater than. Can't be equal to in this case because it says greater than. Okay, kind of a lot going on here, but don't get overwhelmed. Focus in on one part at a time. So let's just act like this part isn't even here. We do know we have to simplify the entire left side before we can do anything. But first, let's do one part at a time. We can distribute this negative 1/2 through. So negative 1/2 times 4 is negative 2x. It's the same thing as saying 4 divided by negative 2. Negative 1/2 times negative 30, or 30 divided by negative 2, is 15. Okay, so we're done with this part. Now we have this 2 that we want to distribute, because we're adding 2 times the quantity of 6x minus 50. So we get plus 12x, 2 times 6x, and then 2 times negative 50 would be negative 100. Okay, so we've done the first step. We still have some work to do, though. We can still simplify or condense or combine like terms on the left side. You always want to condense everything on the left side or the right side, or both, before you start to move anything from the left to the right side or vice versa. So I've got negative 2x and 12x, which is 10x. 15 and negative 100 is minus 85, is less than or equal to 68. Add 85 to both sides. So 10x is less than or equal to 153. Now then, multiply by 1/10, which is the same as dividing by 10. So x is less than or equal to 15.3. So in this case, x could be 15.3 because it says it can be equal to. But go ahead, give me a possible solution that would be part of this solution set. All right, so let's look at some situations that call for an inequality. The velocity in feet per second of an object fired directly upward is given by v equals 120 minus 32t, where t is the number of seconds. So they've defined the variable for us. They've told us what t represents, the number of seconds. When will, meaning we don't know the time, so we're solving for time, the velocity be less than 32 feet per second. So when will the velocity be less than? This is important because that tells us right away, hey, we have an inequality. It just, anything under 32 feet per second is what we want to find. At what time? So we can say, because we know the velocity, when will the velocity be less than 32? So we're going to use what they've given us and plug in the information there. So we know velocity. We want the velocity to be less than 32. And then I can just fill in exactly what they gave me. So now we have the problem set up. We can solve it. Subtract 120 from both sides. So we get negative 32t is less than negative 88. Divide by negative 32. So t, flip your sign, is going to be greater than, I believe it comes out to be about 2.75 seconds. So at any time after 2.75 seconds, the velocity will be less than 32 feet per second. So that's that one. Last one's a little bit more involved. You have $40,000 to invest and want to earn at least $2,400 in interest. At least. A bank will pay you simple interest of 5%. Your brother needs money for his business and will pay you 9% interest. You want to reduce your risk by lending as little to your brother as possible. So if you lend your brother X amount of money, then you will have $40,000 minus X to invest in the bank. So you start with $40,000, you lend your brother a certain amount. So therefore, what you have left over is $40,000 minus whatever you lent your brother, hence the $40,000 minus X. So we're going to write an inequality to describe the investments we need to make and earn at least $2,400. So first thing let's start with is this whole at least 2,400. So at least means it can be that much or more. So greater than or equal to 2,400. They told us, I believe it was going to be 5% from the bank. So whatever we're putting in the bank, we're going to get 5% back. So what are we investing or putting in the bank? It's the $40,000 minus whatever we gave our brother. So 5%, 5 out of 100 is equal to 0.05. So we know we have 0.05 times the amount that we put in the bank. Plus, so this is our investment. Whatever we get back on that, plus what we are going to make from our brother. So let me actually move this so I have more room. Our brother, whatever we lent him, is going to give us 9%. So 9%, 9 out of 100, or 0.09. So 0.09 of what we give our brother. At least $2,400. So now we need to distribute and simplify. So we get 0.05 times 40,000 is 2,000. So we get 2,000 minus 0.05x plus 0.09x is greater than or equal to 2,400. So I have a couple of like terms here. So I get 2,000 plus 0.04x is greater than or equal to 2,400. So now, easy problem. Subtract 2,000 from both sides and then divide by 0.04. So minus 2,000. So 0.04x is greater than or equal to 400. So x could be greater than or equal to 10,000. So therefore, if we want to lend our brother the least amount of money because we don't want a huge risk, what would be the amount that we want to lend our brother? So how little can we lend our brother to make our goal? Yes, the solution set was greater than or equal to 10,000, but we want to lend him the least amount to make that goal, so therefore it would need to be just the $10,000. All right, see you tomorrow in class. Make sure you do your homework problems and make sure you read.